Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Welcome to my channel, and I have the very Dr. Omer Atilla Ergi with me, and we're going to have another deep and informative conversation. For those who don't know, my name is Dr. Zaleha Keskin. I teach and focus on Islamic spirituality at Isra Academy and Charles Sturt University. Dr. Omer Atilla Ergi is a lecturer in theology, also at Isra Academy and Charles Sturt University, and he's also a physicist. So it's the way, Dr. Omer, you bring in I think the theology and the physics is fascinating. And I'm hoping that we are able to do that to some degree in today's conversations as well.
Inshallah.
Inshallah. So thank you. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for the invitation.
So today we're going to look at afterlife, evidence that the afterlife actually does exist. You know, it is one of the tenets of the Islamic faith, but
Yes.
I do feel that a lot of Muslims still forget, not like as in wider community, but even Muslims sometimes struggle to believe in this. Has that
Yes.
been your experience as well?
Yes. I think especially recently in the world today, there are issues with belief in afterlife. But belief in afterlife is directly connected to belief in God. Because belief in God necessitates afterlife anyway. It would not make sense if there was no afterlife and just God.
Can I ask you on that point then, are you saying that there's a problem belief in God in today's time, or conviction in belief in God amongst Muslims?
Maybe that's where the problem is.
Okay.
That's where the problem is. There are a lot of people at the level of imitative iman, imitative belief, or emulative, we can say, not really, convincing, or we can say analytical faith. And that's where the problem is from my view. Yeah.
I see. Okay. Our focus today isn't belief in God. We're assuming here with this conversation that there is belief in God. But there's also evidence that afterlife will happen. And that's something you argue, that there is evidence.
There is evidence. There is, of course, scriptural evidence. We have no doubt about that. There is evidence through testimonies as well, because in Islamic faith, according to Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him, there is a hadith where he says, Allah has sent 124,000 prophets. And technically, all prophets have never lied in their lives. They were all honest. They were all reliable, just people. And they always said the same thing. They always came with the same message. They said there is life after death. So there's a very powerful testimony there, support there. And it is a consensus among prophets and millions of believers as well. So we can take that as an evidence too. But there are also philosophical and theological evidences as well.
Okay.
We can use them as evidences as well for life after death.
Okay, let's delve into then the philosophical evidence.
Okay.
What evidence? I guess because the afterlife, none of us who are living have seen it. And yes, the prophets mentioned it, like you said, but we haven't seen it. So, how do we believe, or what kind of evidence are we talking about?
Look, the reason we haven't seen it because time flows in one direction, isn't it? Like a river, it starts from point A and continues till point B, whatever, when the time ends. Because we know from a physics perspective that the universe, when it began at the time of the Big Bang, at that instant, not only space came, into existence, but time came into existence as well. That is why we don't separate space from time. We say space-time. They are connected, so they are like four-dimensional place. That is why time begins and keeps on flowing towards one direction. It doesn't flow backward. We don't know why from a scientific perspective, but that's the way it is. That's the way the universe is. So at one stage, all human beings were, inside the womb of their mothers, isn't it? And then they came to this world, and we say the next world exists as well, because the journey continues. But nobody goes back to their, mother's womb. So it flows one. So you can't say, why can't we go back in there? So it doesn't make sense. So life after death is same, but philosophical evidence, I use a lot of different analogies because analogies, convince people a lot. And one analogy that I can think of, life in this life, you can see everything goes through, infanthood and then maturity, even in the non-human sense as well, like the plants and everything. The seed goes into the soil, and then a tree comes out of it, and the tree gives fruits. And it has seeds too, and then a new life begins. So we can see that trend there. So with humanity, of course, human beings are quite unique. We can tell that, when we compare ourselves to the 8.7 million different species on Earth. But we have this human condition. It's very interesting. And what sort of an argument can we use for life after death? One example is, that I frequently use is the baby in the mother's womb. If we assume, hypothetically, if we assume that that baby has intellect and able to reason, and we explain to this baby, we say, look, this is not the real world that you're in currently. This is only temporal. You will stay in here for a brief period of time, perhaps about 9 months or so. But after this, you will be sent to another world, which is much bigger. And the world that you will be going, it has stars, moon, the sun, planets. You have trees, mountains, rivers. No matter how in detail we explain to this baby about this world, it will never accept it. Only it will find it very hard to believe because it has never seen it.
It's like a fish. I think of that analogy sometimes. If you tell a fish, you know what, you can survive outside water. There are plants and there's oxygen. It would be like, because it's never experienced it, you can't fully grasp it, even if it's described. Would that be a similar analogy in a way?
Maybe it is. There's a connection there because I remember reading this thing somewhere. It was like an analogy to cartoon analogy, and the baby fish asks the mother fish, Mom, what is water? And the mother says, you tell me something, other than water, and I'll explain what water is to you, because they're inside of it. So they don't realize what water is, because everything is water for them. So maybe there's similarities there, but in regards to the baby example, there's a very powerful evidence there about life after death, because if the baby has the ability to reason, as I said before, it can use its own logic and say, I am in here in this world. This is for me the world. Maybe it's quite dark, and I don't know how long I will be here. But there are some strange things that was given to me when I'm in here. Like one of them is eyes. It's all dark here. What is the purpose of eyes? I can't see anything. I have been given feet, but there's nowhere to walk around, run around. It can say to itself, and it can say, "Look, I'm being fed through my umbilical cord. Why do I have a mouth then? Why do I have a tongue? For taste, all of these things." And then maybe philosophically, the baby can say, perhaps these tools were given to me because I will be using them somewhere else. That is why I have them. And that's exactly what happens, isn't it? When they come to this world, those tools, they start to use them because they are a necessity for a human being.
For life on Earth.
Now, from that perspective, if we look at it, we can think of ourselves in this universe. For us, it may be very, very big, the universe, very large, 93 billion, light years across. But in reality, it resembles the mother's womb. It is a small place in reality, for human beings. Because human beings are never satisfied with anything. This world is a very small place for us.
I can hear the skeptics saying, hang on, you're suggesting that I've got faculties that I'm not using on this earth that I'm going to use somewhere else. I have a feeling you're going that way.
Yeah, that's the way I'm going to go.
Yeah.
And we do have faculties like that, especially in regards to our emotions and feelings and desires, because no human being will want to get old, for example.
That's true. We want to be young.
Yeah, we don't want to get sick. We don't want to get old. We don't want to be poor. We don't want to die. That's another thing.
true.
You know, we want to be young and live youthfully, you know. But none of these things exist here, we know. And we can think to ourselves, reason to ourselves, and why do I have these feelings? Why do I have these desires if they don't exist? And it doesn't make sense otherwise. Because when you look at the animal kingdom, rest of the, living species, they don't have these desires because they don't know. They're not aware of eternity. They're not aware of, death. What is death? They cannot define, getting old, being sick. Or they can't understand these sort of things, but we can. So we have these faculties and feelings, desires to live for eternity. So what I am saying is, by reason, if these desires exist in us, then their counterparts must exist as well. And from a theological perspective, there's a very good saying by a famous theologian who passed away now. He was the student of Said Nursi. His name is Mehmet Kırkıncı. He says, if God did not want to give, he would not have given the feeling of want. So he gave us this feeling of want, which means he will give what we want. So from a theological perspective, there's evidence there as well.
Okay, so just based on what I'm hearing until now, if I can rephrase, you're basically saying if we're in our, it's in our nature, in our fitra, I'm guessing, that we want to live eternally. We want to live young. And what we're seeing in our whole, I guess, life is that if there's something that's been embedded within us, it's always coming to fruition. Like you said, in the womb, we had legs that we weren't using, but they came into fruition. We came onto this earth and we used it. And so you're saying that, if we have this desire or yearning or emotions to live forever, that's going to come into fruition. We are going to live forever.
It will be a reality because we have those feelings. And I think that can be, proven, or we can provide evidence for that as well. Because in this world, when we look at life, everything is created with their counterparts. Like, for example, we have eyes, there's light. We have ears, there's sound. So they're matching. We have tongues and there's taste. So whatever a requirement that we have in our bodies, their counterpart is created. So their desires are fulfilled. So I think these desires that we have in regards to eternity, they will be fulfilled too, because that's why we have them. Another thing is, human beings are not just heap of matter. We're not just made up of atoms, amino acids, proteins.
More than physical, aren't we?
Yeah, we have this spiritual side, that we cannot even define. It's very difficult, but we sense it. We have it's our identity. I remember once a person asked me, how can you prove the existence of soul? That we have souls. And I gave this example, an analogy there as well. I said, we have this feeling of ownership, as human beings. We tend to own things, like we say, this is my house, this is my car, this is my jacket, for example. And when it comes to our own, bodily organs, we make the same claim. We say my heart, my hand, my leg, my feet, my eyes, We say all of these organs, we say that they belong to me. And some people believe that humans are the brain. The brain is humans. There's no spiritual thing. And then I say, why do we make the same claim when it comes to the brain? And we say, my brain.
Again, it's mine.
If you're saying my brain, I would say, who are you then? Who is the being or the entity, making a claim over the entire body, including the brain? Because brain is like a computer system. It is not the user. We are the users, So who are you?
Again, it's atoms, isn't it? Is that what you mean? Like the brain, it is
again, made up of matter.
Matter.
And just like the CPUs, or computer systems, it is something that is used. And there is an entity that's using it, And when that entity is removed from the body, The
Like
machine
death?
is still there. The biological machine is still there, but it's not functioning anymore.
Yeah.
So you can use various philosophical arguments, theological arguments to prove this. And in regards to life after death, there is another very powerful argument, because at the beginning you said, we are beginning the conversation with the assumption that we believe in God anyway,
yeah.
which we do. As Muslims, we do anyway. And if we do believe in God, then God has certain, attributes. God has certain names, and some of them includes, or I can say as an example, like Rezzaq, yeah,
The sustainer.
the sustainer. But these names are infinite and ongoing, everlasting. They are not temporal. So if human beings die and there's no life after death, who is going to benefit from those names, which are eternal, infinite?
That's true.
Isn't it?
That you need ongoing life for those names to continually manifest.
Yes,
Right? Yeah.
yes, ongoing life, ongoing beneficiaries.
Beneficiaries. Yes.
And things like compassion as well. That is why I say I enjoy giving examples, or analogies. And I use this analogy a lot too. Imagine a king, very powerful king. And this king invites certain people from his kingdom who are the poorest. They're living in poverty, They're just barely surviving. And he sends them his most respected, vizier, man, and with an invitation, golden invitation. And these people come to the palace, and they sit around this huge table, and they are having a feast. The king is feeding them, honoring them. On top of that, he's giving all of them, one bag of gold, very valuable. But as they eat on the table, they realize that sometimes people are being removed from the table. And one of them, wonders what's happening, and he goes to the window and looks out. In the king's garden, that person is being hanged. All right. So the king is, imagine, welcoming them with all this wealth, feast, and everything. But few hours later, they're being killed. They're being hanged. Now, would you assume that this king is a compassionate king or an evil king? That's, everyone would say that's an evil king. It's feeding the people for the kill. But when you look at life, it's similar, isn't it? Like we come here, we taste these worldly pleasures for 70, 80, whatever years.
And we're showered with blessings.
With blessings here. We get all these beautiful things, but at the end, we become worm food. We are killed, because that's similar to being hanged. So the king is the Almighty Allah. Would he be compassionate if everything ends there? There's no continuation.
It's actually cruelty in a way, isn't it?
It's in cruelty, because a true blessing is the one that has continuation. So if blessing continues, that's true blessing. But if it's just going to end, it is like you have never experienced it.
It's actually sometimes worse, because
it's worse.
Once you've experienced something and then it's taken away, it's harder, because you've experienced that good thing, and then you experience, knowing its deprivation, what it feels like, is really hard. So it feels difficult. But it's a good point you made too about that infinite or ongoing. I like that analogy of the king. But even I was just thinking, like, if I was constantly kind, and then just someone that said, "Oh, she's always so kind," and then day 20, I flip and I become nasty. I'm no longer kind, even if I was kind for 20 days. It's like, oh, she's so nasty. She can be so nasty.
All that kindness is wiped off by that one thing.
And as you said, from a theology perspective, we say infinite. Allah's names are infinite, like the Al-Wahhab, which means the giver of all, which means he's always giving. Not like until you die and then it's sorry. the safe is closed, the vault is closed.
Yeah, I think they are very good, powerful evidences, to life after death, and we will continue living, and we sense it too. We get that feeling too.
Yeah, it's in us that we want to.
Although people, they say that it's the reality of life, we will all die, but in reality, inside, they feel that if we were in a room with 50 people, and if we were to do a survey, hidden survey, not open,
That's right.
I guarantee you everyone would be saying, in this room, probably I will be the last one to go. No one will say I will be the first, because you don't match yourself with death. You think it will never come, but the reality is, yes, it is there. So this is a very powerful feeling that, we want eternity.
I would also say, I've heard some people say, oh, no, I don't think I think when I die, I'll become nothing. I really feel, as you said, if we sit deep down search and we really connect with our fitra, with our nature, with our spirit, we all want to live forever.
Yes,
it's like you're blocking. I think, so some people might respond saying, oh, no, I don't think I'll live forever. I would say, well, do some soul searching and you will find that you want to live forever.
Contradiction of their own natural disposition. There's no doubt about that. But I don't think it's very sincere too. Because I have spoken to some people about, how Allah, God Almighty, placed us on this earth for a temporal time, put us through a test so we can attain, eternal life. And they say, if I was insulted before I was created, I would say, no, I don't want to exist, And I say to them, think about it this way. What would happen if the angel of death just appeared before you right now?
Right now.
And the angel said to you, we heard that you don't want to exist.
We have to,
Are you certain about this, decision? I can, just put you into non-existence right now. God command me to come here. What would they say? Be realistic, Please, that example that I always use, that analogy, the old man analogy, the 90-year-old man, all his life, he used to chop wood and carry it on his shoulder, go to his village and sell the wood just to survive, get few dollars, whatever. And this happened throughout his life. And he was 90-year-old, and they didn't have, pension system and things like that then, hundreds of years ago. And one day he's like half folded, double folded, and he goes up the mountains, collects all this wood again, puts it on his shoulder. He can barely carry it. And then he just chucks it on the ground and he says, I had enough. Where is the angel of death, And suddenly angel of death appears and says, old man, you called me. What do you want? And the man says, can you help me load this wood on my back? So when reality comes, everything changes. We all want to exist, no matter. And all living beings like that.
I would say, it's a good point. We all want to exist. And even those, I think, who have achieved very high spiritual levels, even their willingness to embrace with death, and we know, like, some people get to that point, it's not because they're going to become non-existent. Again, even the existence after life, that's what they're actually yearning for.
Exactly. In the back of their mind, even if they're non-believers, in the back of their mind, they have that sense, perhaps something is out there. Perhaps there is something in beyond. That is why they become acceptable, accepts the situation.
And embracing of death, because death does not mean an end.
Yes.
Well, some very good conversations there, and evidence from philosophical to theological. I hope it's helped us all to understand. I was going to say outside, think about believe in the afterlife outside the square, but outside the womb. I feel like saying based on that initial analogy. Very powerful evidence, really, based on our Islamic faith, Islamic tradition, on the existence. Keep around, and inshallah we'll see you in another podcast. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you.